Okay. Hello again. Okay. I'm again going to, I found this. Yay. As you get older, that's just what's going to happen. You cannot find little things that you know, you put down. That's, I'd like to be able to just blame that on old age, but I can't. I can't. I've always been that way. It's just one of those things. There are people that are absent-minded professors, and that is the nicest way I can put it towards myself. So anyway, okay. So we just got through talking about um, capitalism and the gospel, and I wanted to do a second episode just following that one because um, a few months back, I was really sick. Now, this was after COVID, but it felt a little bit like I just gotten COVID again. And so I was down for a week. And so what I did was I binge watched um, Charles Dickens movies. Um, let's see, Bleak House, David Copperfield, Martin Chuzzlewit, and of course, The Christmas Carol is my absolute favorite movie over Christmas, and I have got 5 different versions that I listen to. There's, Hard from and I can't remember his name, but he and there's another old black and white one, but I've got 2 old black and white ones. People love that and have continued to redo it, over and over and over, and, there's the cartoon ones but, I think I just love them all. Honestly, I just love them all, but, so I watched, like, 5 different versions of that, so I was just completely back to back to back as I was laying there just, I can't move, I'm so sick. Um, Back to back, and it was really interesting because I kept s saying, "Am I seeing this right?" And I started thinking about it, and I started cross-referencing Dickens stories to to just my mind is just the way just all the history that I read about the time frame and theological information, it was all jumbled around in there in my little sick brain. But, I just thought, "What is Dickens trying to say? What is he trying to teach us with, his movies and his story?" Well, it's his stories, obviously, he didn't make a movie. And, how is this gonna change my life? How you what how and how is he expecting other people to take it? Because Dickens really was trying to get us to change. He was a very much he was a social fire. He was trying to be the influencer of his day. Okay, so when you watch his movies back to back, it becomes quite glaring that Dickens' overarching theme in his all his movies is money. Think of that his most well-known figure, Scrooge, the man's most terrifying enlightenment of his filthy greed through 3 supernatural spirits. His conversion pivots on learning to give his money away to help others through money. Little tiny Tim needs his money, being generous with your money. Now, Dickens, even though he was a Christian, his view of money is really not a Christian view. Jesus warns us that it's harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom than a camel goes through the eye of a needle. He also warned us that the love of money is the root of all, I know, it's either all or most, all evil. No, Dickens is quite post Enlightenment in his view of money. Greed is always the main arch villain, masquerading behind various entertaining characters. But, and here's my focus, money also plays the great hero, too. The great reward at the end is money. You get your money back. You learn to spend your money wisely. You learn how to manage your money. Money play, or you get your money back in it from an inheritance, a scheme. So money plays the dual role of the atonement of good and evil. Dickens saw to it that the great reward is that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Historically, the happily ever after in literature was that the main character became a hero through some sort of noble sacrifice or overcoming the dragons in his life. This was about becoming great. But over the last 300 years, Dickens has helped us to change that worldview, and it's morphed into seeing life through the lens of money. Notice how capitalism and communism, or slash socialism, are two sides of the exact same coin. Both capitalism and communism see money as the savior, either through economic opportunity or money is the great equalizer through redistribution. Financial justice is social justice today. All evils can be washed away through monetary restitution, which sometimes is redistribution. Now that Dickens has been interconnected with theology, philosophy, and history in my brain, I was thinking about how are these stories going to change my life? Okay, now we know everything we watch changes us, but either it's voluntary or involuntary, but what we watch, we become. That's biblical. So I realized something. My entire life, I have been fighting this idea that money is some type of savior. Yes, money, like any pleasure, such as eating ice cream and sexual stimulation, if repeated enough times, can give one the appearance of happiness, at least fun. But I was situated as a child in a position that I was able to see the outcome of wealth, great wealth. Now, I didn't have money, and really my parents didn't have a lot of money, but uh, all sets of grandparents had lots of money. And um, so I knew instinctively, even at the youngest of ages, that I held in my hand one of the rarest gifts of God, the 10 talents that would require my utmost responsibility. I grew up around lavish wealth, the Hollywood version of America. And now I'm talking about the American wealth, the Rockefellers, the Carnegie, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, the nouveau riche wealth, not the European aristocracy, aristocracy. I could clearly see, even from a child, to my great astonishment, that something that very few people get to see. Money doesn't make you happy. I had a view from the 50-yard line. The cream of the crop are no more happy than anyone else. Those 10 talents given to me by God were the priceless gems of understanding that told me to search out what really would make me happy. I wanted to do that. Okay, I found out money can't make you happy. I saw that. Now, not that there weren't happy rich people. That's not true. But I'm saying that there was, because I could compare it, because I lived in this neighborhood, and we were just surrounded with lavish wealth. But then my mom put me in a little Seventh Day Adventist school where there were people that were poor to moderately wealthy, but I saw all sides. I mean, most of them were just like middle income people. And so I got a chance to really acquaint myself with all of the strata. And so my personal family was incredibly happy. But I also knew that that had very little to do with money. Living in a very rich neighborhood and with many wealthy relatives, I assessed that money gave people more opportunity to be miserable in many different ways. Okay, Dallas in the 1960s and 70s was awash with, and you didn't know it. See, most of the way, it was so kept behind the scenes, but there was terrible gambling underneath. Even though it was illegal, people would go and gamble lavish amounts of their money away, and there was just a lot of seedy stuff going on underneath. And so I knew that you had much more opportunities to take drugs because you had more money to buy drugs, and that you could go do stuff, anything you wanted. Now, our family didn't because we were Seventh Day Adventists. We were very strict. But I heard it all. I saw it all from relatives who were not Seventh Day Adventists, who would just, fly off to Paris and buy clothes in Paris and stuff, and come home, and you did a lot more in Paris than you should have been doing. So anyway, but I mean, you have a lot more opportunity to sin big when you've got a lot of money. And so I wanted to find out what truly did make people happy. My middle class friends weren't any happier than my rich ones. And it grieved me that my fifth grade friends were so unhappy and they despised their parents so much that they would run out and be rebellious and take drugs. Excuse me. And when I did encounter poverty, and I did, these people seemed less unhappy than the rest of the world. And I was very puzzled by that. Now, see, I developed because of this a hyper awareness of people. And I discovered something that Dickens didn't seem to, that doing the right thing makes one happy. That's it. That's one of the biggest ways. Do the right thing. Now, not always directly, but indirectly. You had to face the giant of temptation to be mean, arrogant, rude, and you had to face the tempest of temptation to lie and cheat or steal. You had to face the agonies of being humble and asking forgiveness and conquering the temptations to feel um, immediate joy. Give those up so that you could have lasting joy. It was the difficult choices of doing what was right that did more for one than all the money available to men. Your heart would soar higher from winning the battle with the dragon of selfishness than opening all those perfect presents from the long list you gave to Santa. And I'm very sorry that so few people have ever believed that. Every single person I know in their deepest heart of hearts says, "Yeah, but if I got money, just I'm different. If God gave me money, I really would be happy." You just don't realize. And you know what? If you go from poor to super rich really fast, you are going to have some fun for a while. You will feel great relieved. But they said that I think it was like 70% of people who won the lottery said if they could do it over again, they would not win it. They would not win the money. It caused massive troubles in their lives, including divorce. So honestly, you need to believe you aren't different. God would have given you money. If you would have been different, he would have blessed you with a whole bunch of money, but he didn't. And that just shows me you wouldn't have been any better than the rest of us. You would have ended up realizing money does not make you happy. And I know everybody says, "Well, I just want that chance to find it out personally." No, you don't. That's that wouldn't. That's the same as saying, um, I want the personal knowledge of committing adultery, or I want the personal knowledge of having overcome drugs. No, no, you don't. And going back to Dickens gave an ending to the story of the young man who asked Christ what he needed to be saved. Remember that parable? Well, the rich young ruler said, "What do I need to be saved?" And Jesus told him to give away his wealth and follow him. Giveaway. Scrooge was that rich young man who awakened from the encounter with God, changed, but able to keep his wealth. Now, he did good with it. He gave a lot of it away, but he didn't give it up. Dickens changed God's requirements. God didn't ask the rich man to do good with his money. He said to give it up. Yes, I know. You're searching through the Bible. Oh, where? Yeah, but what about Abraham? Abraham didn't have to give his money. Yeah, there were, but I'm talking about this particular parable. In the parable, in the new covenant, when Christ was here on earth, he said, give it up. But I know the biblical arguments for Christian capitalism. I do. My husband and I had this discussion for many, many years. Is there a Christian version of capitalism? But what I do know is that Jesus is clear as crystal. Money should never be seen as our savior. Dickens gave mammon the dual role as the demon and the angel. And I'm sure he didn't mean to, but he's subverting Christ's commandment. You cannot serve both God and mammon. Christ understood the deceptive nature of making money the savior of mankind. And before I finish, I would like to appeal to our bishops out there, because even they have fallen to this. They have fallen to this idea that social justice can be made right through redistribution of our money. Pope Francis used to say, let all the immigrants into America. Well, why were they coming to America? They were not coming to America to find God. They were coming to America for money, for opportunities to make money, and for our generous welfare system. As if, again, money is it's all about. That's what justice is about money. And it's not. We're not doing anybody any favors by making it. And we're really going against God. So anyway, that was all I wanted to say. And I am probably going to do another live in just a few minutes. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for listening. And God bless.